Okay.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Friday, February 25th. The slaughterhouse of failure is not in our destinies. We shall persevere until we succeed. Emblazon that on your minds. Today, we're going to talk about the difference between achievers and average people. But I'd like to make a little caveat before that. There is nothing wrong with being an average person, because the average person can become achievers and can become, can become very successful. An average person doesn't mean just going to stay there. So Dan picked out something today from John Maxwell. He's an author, he's a pastor, and he's a leadership expert. So Dan, if you want to.
I thought this was an interesting topic, and I don't know if I've shown this to you guys before. I know I have on our team call, but I have this book called the John Maxwell Daily Reader, and there's awesome topics in there for every day. And so when Lawrence and I were talking about what we were going to speak about today, I said, hold on a second, let me check my book and see what's in there for this for tomorrow. And it happened to be this topic specifically of what's the difference between achievers and average people. So one of the quotes that he had that I really liked was that the difference between achievers and average people and achieving people is that their perception of and response to failure is different, right? The average people tend to look at failure as a negative, whereas achievers tend to look at failure as an opportunity for growth, and that growth mindset that we talk about on a regular basis. And I think there's a lot of different things that achievers do than average people. One of them is consistency, making a commitment to something that they believe in, and really setting goals for what they want to achieve and how they're going to achieve those goals. And that kind of dovetails into what we talk about with the 4 disciplines. I think the achievers are more inclined to naturally fall into those 4 disciplines with goal setting and accountability and the other disciplines to really get where they want to be in life. And the achiever expects to succeed before they even start, whereas the average person isn't really seeing themselves succeed before they start. They're just looking at it as something that they're going to do, a daily activity or whatever it may be. So, with that being said, and to reiterate what I said, that achievers set goals. They set their compass for where they want to head, how they're going to get there, and they're accountable. They follow those disciplines of execution, whereas, average people, I don't think, tend to do those same activities.
Yeah, actually, I'd bring up a case where we've got a friend who's the CEO of Hollywood now, the CEO of Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. And, we were talking about her interview and so on and so on. And one of the questions that her interviewer said was, what if you don't get this job? And she said, it didn't cross my mind. Because she's so focused on her goal and what she was going to achieve that there was no other option. She's just going to get it. Didn't cross my mind. And the achiever is absolutely convinced that he's going to succeed or she's going to succeed, and that failure isn't an option. However, I think they keep in mind also that if there is a hiccup along the way, it's an exciting thing to overcome. It's a challenge, but it's to overcome it. It's not going to deter the person. It's not going to make them feel any less enthusiastic or any less, sure about where they're going. And as Dan said, they obviously do take into account basically the 4 principles, and I think this applies to everything we do in life. You've got to measure, you've got to have a look and see where you're going. And the positive person just makes it exciting, makes it something that is he's got no doubts. That's the basic difference, I think. It's an attitude thing.
Yeah, it's all about attitude. It's about mindset. It's about setting those goals for what you want to achieve. And the achiever is a person that likes to get things done. You know, they're going to step outside their comfort zone. They're going to think outside the box. They're not going to follow the crowd. They're going to do whatever it takes to be successful, regardless of the obstacles that are set in front of them, and regardless of what everybody else is doing around them. They're going to do whatever it takes to be successful. The average person, they think about getting things done differently. They're not really ready to step out of their comfort zone to try new things. They have to think about whether or not it's something that they want to engage in. You know, one of the things that I say or that I see when I'm talking to people recruiting through LinkedIn is, you know, if they feel like they need to ask somebody else what they think of this opportunity and whether it's real and whether it's something that they should do, they're probably not the right person, right? They're not an achiever. They're an average person, because they are looking for somebody else's approval to do what they want to do, right? They're not able to take that on of their own volition and say, this is something I'm going to do regardless of what other people think, right? And so when there's something to be done, the achiever, they get started right away, right? And they follow through with passion and determination and consistency. Whereas the average person looks at the same condition and have to think about whether the time's right. Is this something that they can be successful? What are the obstacles? You know, they look for reasons not to do something or not to achieve something. So I'm really looking for achievers in this business, people that are go-getters or self-starters. They're able to go out with very little instruction from us and go out and know what they need to do to get the job done. So the achiever really believes that their future is unlimited. The average person feels like they're boxed in, and, you know, life's handed them lemons, and they're never going to crawl out of, you know, whatever life's thrown at them, and they're not successful because of, you know, 20 different reasons why they haven't been successful, or 20 different reasons why they're not where they want to be in life. Whereas achievers go out and they make things happen to get things done to achieve what they want to in life.
However, I think, Dan, there's a difference between approval and opinion. You know, an average person will ask for approval about doing something because he or she is so uncertain about the clarity or the nebulous thing, the cloudy future that they see. Whereas a person that is an achiever should be humble enough to ask for opinion and to be able to take the opinions of people, hopefully of a similar way of thinking, but to be able to take the opinions and to be able to go with that. So there's a difference, in my opinion, between approval and opinion. And a leader and a person that's positive and an achiever will weigh up the opinions of different people and then make a decision. That is being smart, because there's another way to look at being an achiever. You could be a pig-headed person and really, really be, you know, convinced absolutely you're going to succeed, and you fail. And then you fail again, and then you fail again. And only way you're going to learn is if you pick yourself up and have the humility of saying, okay, what went wrong? What did I do? What happened? Why did I fail? It's impossible. And then somebody will give you an opinion about something. You say, oh, you know, that's a good idea. So I think it's important for an achiever to also be humble.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. You know, the real difference is, no matter how difficult the problems are, the key to overcoming them isn't in changing your circumstances necessarily. It's about changing yourself, right?
Yeah.
And having that mindset, whether you are, whether you have a growth mindset or you have a fixed mindset, this plays into what we've been talking about for a year and a half since I started doing this calls with you. It's all about mindset, how you're going to look at obstacles, how you're going to deal with failure. Are you going to accept failure as the price of success today and keep moving forward? Right? Is it a price that you have to pay? Is failure a price that you have to pay to achieve? Right? And how do you look at that? I've been asked multiple times, like, what are some of your biggest failures? And I can't think of any, because I don't look at them as failures. I look at them as opportunities to learn and overcome, obstacles. Not to say that I haven't failed. I've failed just like everybody else has, probably more than others. But I keep moving forward, and I don't remain stagnant because of those failures. Right? I don't look at them and say, oh, geez, I don't want to fail again. I keep moving forward. And if you can do that, moving past the failures or moving past, the last sales call that you made, and whether you got a negative reaction from it, how are you going to move on to the next one? How are you going to do things differently? How are you going to pull a different reaction out of the next person you talk to? How are you going to grow from that experience and do things a little bit differently? So, it's not whether or not you're going to have problems. You're going to have problems. How you respond to them makes all the difference in the world, and how you move past them.
Yeah, 100%. It's, I think failures are, if one looks at it and says, I failed at certain thing, but I was enriched by my personal growth from that. I had a failure, what didn't go well, whatever it is. And you look at and you introspect on that, and you grow from that. It becomes exciting. It becomes a stepping stone. It becomes something that you say, yay, I learned from that. And you strengthen from that. I had an experience. I lost a huge amount of money when I was exporting flowers. And the guy didn't pay me. It was a lot of money. And I sued him. And I lost in a court in Holland. The judge said that I was stupid enough to give him so much credit. Well, for me, it was a huge amount of money, but it was a great lesson. And I thought, okay, don't be such a schmo in the future. Dot the I's, cross the T's, be more attentive, be more careful, don't be so trusting. All of these things are lessons that in that case I learned from being so enthusiastic about sales and not so much about collecting. So yeah, I think we get excited if we learn from those.
Yeah, life can be a series of setbacks, right? And how you respond to those setbacks is going to make all the difference in the world. So, next time you have a setback, I want you to think about, how you responded to those, and ask yourself 3 questions. What were the thoughts that you had about that specific setback? What was your attitude towards the problem, and how did you choose to respond to it? And then ask yourself, why did I choose to respond that way? And how is that going to move me forward? Right? 3 very simple questions. But I think you need to look at these failures, or quote unquote failures or setbacks, and think about, how are you dealing with them, and make that part of your habit, right? Look at a series of setbacks that you've had. Did you respond to them all the same way? What did you think about them? Did you think about them all the same way? How did you move forward? Did you move forward the same way every single time? Is that a habit that's built into your DNA? And what can you do differently the next time? Failures are about education. It's educating yourself about why you failed, how you're going to do things differently to move past that failure and be successful and achieve regardless of the setbacks that you faced, right? Lawrence talks about that. How did you move past that setback, Lawrence, with the flowers? Did did you sit there and whine about it to your friends and family, or did you just say, I'm just going to move forward, I'm going to do the next deal differently, you know?
Yeah, you look and see what went wrong, what went well, what went wrong. What went wrong was for example, the way to penetrate a market. In that case, what went wrong was my checks and balances, which had to be tweaked and had to be strengthened. And instead of putting my head between my hands and saying, oh, geez, OMG, I said, no, man, this was fantastic. I went to university in that particular loss, and it was a big loss, but it was like a university course. And you've got to open your heart, your mind, and take away the arrogance and anger, because you get angry with yourself too if you fail. So you've got to take away all of those emotions and take a close look with your mind, and have a cold look at what the things are that you can improve and how you can improve them, and not be afraid to ask for opinion as opposed to approval, but ask for opinion. I think that is huge. In a company that I had before, I had 350 employees. I had 9 heads of departments. Every morning I would have a meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I would say, this is where we are, this is what we got. And I would ask each head of department his opinion about what was going on in his or her sector. And from there, I would make up my mind. And I would say, this is what we're going to do. So I think that by wanting to achieve, we have to have the courage of not being afraid to fail. And if and when we do, be grateful for that failure and learn upwards, fall forwards on it, go upwards, not wallow in self-pity and say, oh God, I'm not going to do this again. Oh no, I can't do this, blah, 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 blah. That is just a non-starter.
Yeah, and one of the things that they talk about in this particular on this particular subject is that average people expect never to fail again. They're limited by their past mistakes, right? And why are they limited by their past mistakes? Achieving people know failure is part of the progress, part of making progress, and they take new risks, and when you start talking about failure and setbacks, how do you deal with them? Are you dealing with them from emotionally, or are you dealing with them more pragmatically? Because sometimes, I'm not saying that emotion's bad, but sometimes when you deal with things with too much emotion, that can really cloud your decision-making process, or how you move forward for something. Being more pragmatic about it, thinking about what you're going to do differently, what caused this setback, what caused this failure, how are you going to deal with it? And then looking at really incorporating these 4 disciplines of execution into achieving your goals. And having accountability for those goals, having accountability with yourself and with your team, and really, integrating these 4 disciplines into being an achiever, right? Because I think these 4 disciplines are very important, not only for us as business owners achieving our goals, but they're also integral in helping our physician practices be successful in what they're doing, right? We're really, this is a business about leadership and personal growth. And it's not just about us growing personally or us developing our leadership skills. It's also about teaching what we've learned and what we know to the physicians that we're partnering with, and not only helping them with this program, integrating this program into their practice, but there's a lot of things that they can learn about running their practice more efficiently, setting goals for their practice. And so it's not necessarily all about integrating this, but it's creating a partnership with them and turning them into achievers with this program in their practice.
Yeah, I think you've said something I really right on the head, Dan, in my opinion. The fact about being pragmatic, the fact is we have to always detach our emotion from the cold realities of something. If we look at something from an emotional point of view, we're going to see it in one way. If we look at it from a purely intellectual point of view, then we're going to have probably much more success from a business point of view if we look at something with our mind instead of our heart. Because when we look with our heart, we feel we get sidetracked by emotion and say, oh my gosh, it didn't go well, and your emotion takes over. Whereas on your mind, it would say, well, why didn't it go well? It was because of this and this and this. Take oneself out of the equation and look at it as a fact. And then you have a much clearer, one will have a much clearer picture of the lesson to learn from there. Because it's just a fact. It's not an emotional thing. And if we've got to detach the emotion from the intellectual analysis, I think.
No, I think you're absolutely right, Lawrence. And, I want to go back to what you said about average people. Just because you're, average doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have value. We're going to have average people in this business. We're going to come across high achievers in this business. But you think about people that have come into this business, they've been really, really excited about it, over the course of 2 weeks or a month and a half, when they don't see success. And, how do they deal with that? And what's their drop-off rate, right? You're going to see a much higher drop-off rate from those average people than you are from the high achievers, because the high achievers are going to figure out a way to be successful in spite of those failures or those setbacks. So, achievers are really excited about coming out of their comfort zone, the thrill, the challenge, the unlimited possibilities, whereas, average people are the opposite. Average people quit, achieving people persevere, right? And so there's a great quote in this topic from J. Wallace Hamilton. He said, people are training for success when they should be training for failure.
Yeah.
Failure is far more common than success. Poverty is more prevalent than wealth, and disappointment more normal than arrival, right? So high achievers have really just, they look at things differently. They learned how to confidently look at failure in the eye and move forward anyway, right? No one ever achieves success without first going through failure. So we really need to start thinking about, maybe there's some average folks on our team. How do we turn them into achievers? How do we get them to change their mindset about how they're dealing with failure? They were excited about this business at one point. Why are they not excited about it now? How can we help them get a win? How can we help them move past their feelings of failure or ineptitude or whatever it may be? That's part of our job as leaders, to bring out the best in people. If we brought them into the business, our job is to do everything we can to help them be successful, right? And then, if they decide this isn't for them down the line, we've at least done everything we could possibly do to help them, right? And so that's what I love about this business. This business is multifaceted. I just had this conversation on a call at 8 o'clock this morning. It's strategy, it's leadership, it's personal growth. It's learning about the 4 disciplines, goals, goal setting, how we're going to achieve those goals, holding people accountable in the business, holding ourselves accountable, partnering with physicians to help them drive revenue for their practice, but more importantly, showing them how to use these 4 disciplines to be successful, not only with our system, but with, those are tools that they can use in running their practice on a daily basis, right? And so there's so many different fun facets of this business that's what keeps me motivated every single day.
Dan, you said a bunch of really great things there. It reminds me, I did a course years ago, something called Landmark Forum. I encourage everybody to look at Landmark Forum. And Landmark Forum was where they put 400 people, 300, 200, whatever in a room. And then they go and investigate. They say, so make a statement, for example, I don't know, who likes art? And some people put their hands up. Who doesn't like art? And they put their hands up. And then they say, come and tell me why you don't like art. or who's good at art, and somebody will put up their hands. And they'll come in and investigate that person in front of 400 people. And you'll find that the person who hates art or doesn't, or thinks he's useless at art, maybe at 4 years old, his grandmother said to him or her, "Oh, come on, look, Cynthia's much better than you at this. You know, this, you're not good at this thing." And that statement, simple like that, can change the person's attitude in life from to become average, to not strive to do something because somebody has, as a child, somebody has influenced that person in a negative way. And that person loses confidence in him or herself. So that landmark forum then brings out what they call the rackets, the people's rackets. What's the racket? The racket is you can't do this. You don't think you can do that. You're not sure about this. You're not sure about that. These are all rackets which we put in our minds. We actually grow up, we build in our minds our uncertainties. And instead of, and as you said, I think you're right, train for failure. But train for failure because we fail more often. But then find out what the racket is. Why did you fail? What is the excuse? What is your mental reason for thinking you can't do it, or that you're average, mediocre, or whatever the negative connotation is? So there's something that triggers things. And if we can find that and we can eliminate that person's uncertainty in him or herself, the person can go from kind of average to being a go-getter. Not saying a leader necessarily, but yes, can be.
Yeah. You know, one of the things, or one of the books that I really like right now is Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. You know, and it's about being accountable, taking extreme ownership of when things don't go right, taking extreme ownership of your team, you know, not making excuses, not blaming others when things don't go right, not blaming others when there's failures, you know, taking responsibility for those things, not only on a personal level, but for your team, right? What are you not doing today that's helping your team grow tomorrow? What are the two most important things that you can do to help reach your goal today, right? Your wildly important goal, right? And take extreme ownership of those things. You know, probably one of the things when I was in medical device sales was it didn't matter what happened in the operating room, what happened in the logistics leading up to, you know, having the correct instrumentation and implants there for a surgery. It didn't matter whether it was my fault or not. The blame always would fall on you. Doctors are notorious, maybe not all doctors, orthopedic surgeons are notorious for blaming everybody else around them. They never do anything wrong. You know, it's the nurse's fault. It's the sales rep's fault. It doesn't matter what happened. It's always somebody else's fault. They never take extreme ownership for most of the things that they do, you know? And so that was kind of ingrained into me for 25 years, that whether it was my fault or not, how do I come up with a solution? And whether it was my failure or somebody else's failure, how did I help the team move past that failure to be successful, right? And sometimes that happened, you know, in 30 seconds. Sometimes it was a 5-minute, you know, what do we do? What instrumentation do we need to get past this problem? What implant do I have that can solve, you know, an intraoperative difficulty, something that went wrong? Because things do go wrong. But, you know, taking extreme ownership for all facets of what was going on in that operating room theater, what was going on the logistical side, was what made me successful, right? And so if you haven't read that book, Extreme Ownership, I highly recommend it. There's another book that he and his partner put out. Actually, it was just Jocko Willink. It's called Leadership Strategy and Tactics. It's a great book as well. I keep these here at my desk. I read 10, 15, 20 minutes at a time in between calls. You know, it's just picking up these little tidbits, these little nuggets of information, and really incorporating them into your personal business goals, but helping to incorporate them into the goals of your team, right? And I think taking extreme ownership for anything that you do in life is going to help you be an achiever, and it's going to help you be more successful.
That's what personal growth is all about. And you're doing it every day. You're watering the seeds of knowledge and of emotional strength, of intellectual strength rather. And that is what personal growth is all about. Dan, we're at 10:02. Does anybody have any comment? Anybody want to add something, subtract anything? Anything want to make any comment about anything? Going once, going twice. Nobody?
I'm not getting off this call till we hear from at least 2 people.
Okay, I'll go. Deb here. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so I just wanted to say it's been great having all the calls and the continuing education for us, for the people up in Canada, because as you know, we haven't been able to cross the border. So it's been like a really big challenge for us, but we're hoping to bust through in March to go to the forum in Florida. But it didn't stop us from doing the business. We stayed connected through these calls, and even going to the forum, I was able to have Scott look after my person. So you still have someone that can help you out, and you don't even have to be there, and still move your business forward. So I just wanted to say I really appreciate everything you guys do
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you. Glad to be of help.
I also agree with Deborah. I was at kind of a low point, I guess, about a couple of weeks ago, and I sent out an SOS to several people on the call and said I need help. I'm struggling. I'm in a rut right now. I haven't had good success this week, or haven't been able to place a scanner or whatever it was, and everyone that I had sent that out to immediately responded and picked me up and told me to put my big girl pants on and let's get this done. So I definitely appreciate all the support from that standpoint. I know that we all go through this, it's sales, it's a roller coaster. You have your ups, you have your downs. And when you're up, it's fantastic. And when you're down, it can get you down. And that's when you have to recognize and realize that there's a whole support system that comes with this. And so don't be afraid to ask for help. I'm probably the last person that ever asked for help, honestly, but my ship was taking on water and I couldn't get it out fast enough. So thankfully, a lot of the leaders on the call brought their buckets and kept me afloat. So thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up, Riley, but I didn't want to call you out. But that's one of the things that I love about this business, right? Is Riley was struggling. She sent out an SOS email, like, I don't know why I'm not having success. I'm frustrated, blah, 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 blah. And everybody rallied and, picked her up, right? And we said, what can we do to help? How can we move forward? Yes, you haven't reached your goals, but it's, you will if you just stick to the plan, right? And keep following that compass that you set for yourself to be successful. Do more calls, do more of this, do more of that. Fill out your whiteboard and really concentrate on what you need to do to build that team and get to Ruby. And so, it was really, for me, I got like chills, and I had like the hair on the back of my neck stand up a little bit, just seeing the support for Riley and getting her past that, little low point.
Riley, we all go through that. I can't tell you how many times I called SOS and, to my upline and had those calls. I mean, I even had the general manager of Newskin called me one time when I was new in the business, just to reach out. And there was at least a half a dozen times where I thought I was making a mistake and wanted to quit and I wasn't going to survive and all these things. And it's really good to have people around you that believe in you when you don't believe in yourself at times. And, don't let the emotion, and it's hard. There were days I spent in bed not wanting to make a phone call because I just was like, what's the point? And that's exactly the opposite of what you want to do. Get into massive action, and one good phone call can completely change your state and your attitude, and then build some personal momentum. And I was reading something a couple of days ago, and it said, opposition strengthens conviction. So the more people oppose us, as long as we've got a team of people, we've got something that's nurturing us, whether it's a book, whether it's a call, whether it's an SOS call, whether it's a webinar like this, we come out of it being more convinced that what we're doing is something that's worthy of fighting for.
No, absolutely. And I know even Dan talked to Kate, his partner, about it, and Kate popped in. She really wanted to validate, first of all, my feelings. She said, I can't tell you how many times that Dan went through this. And I've never met Kate, and she's never been on, like really any of our calls, but she was the first one to pop in her lovely leopard print robe and her leopard print coffee mug. And
it sounds like you interrupted something.
well, no, she gave me the doorway pickup. She stood at the doorway and she literally just just kind of talked to all the things that I was going through, and she was like, you're gonna do amazing. And Dan talks about how great you are, and all the things that you have going on. And so that really meant a lot too, that it went further than just the people that I've reached out to, and everybody responded in a different way. Some called and we chatted, and some sent some positive videos or something through email. So don't be afraid to reach out to anybody. And somebody has something that's really going to resonate with you. They will say something, they will send something, because it's hard. I mean, we're in the business of sales. There's nothing easy about sales, or we would all be rich in sales, right? So take the good with the bad, but just remember, you have a whole team behind you supporting you.
Have you had any success since that low point?
Yes, I have.
Exactly.
Actually, one of my successes is on the call, Nathan. So he's going to do great things. But yes, I really I changed my mindset. I changed the approach that I was doing as far as conversations, I was having with prospects or recruiting. I've really taken a hold of embracing the team that I'm building. So I have been working a couple of days on kind of an email type thing when new people come on to quickly get them up to speed, because I know I have a couple of people that have just come on, and I've been pretty sporadic in the things that I've sent them. And so that was one of the things that really I wanted to do for myself and then for my team. And so literally just put together all the links and everything that that they would need to do when they get started to really get out of the gate running. So I will share that with anybody once I get it all tweaked of how I want it to look. But
Riley, I think this really, I think this conversation is great, because I think it really highlights something that's important. We need to distinguish between failure and feelings of failure, right? And so you weren't failing, you were having feelings of failure, right? Or not having feelings of success, right? We're all achievers on this call. If we weren't achievers, we wouldn't be on these calls, right? We're here to learn from each other. We're here to learn, keep our mindset positive, learn different techniques to stay positive, learn different techniques to move past failure. So I view everybody on this call as achievers, right? Because we all have the same common goal. We're all working towards the same thing. And, that's a great story of having feelings of failure, but I think you need to distinguish between feelings of failure and actual failure, right? And then pushing through that, this is a lesson to everybody, pushing through those feelings of failure. And look at this, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, you had more success in the last couple of weeks than you probably have had previous to that combined, right?
Yeah.
And so it's an awesome lesson, and thank you for sharing.
I'd like to highlight something that Riley said. She said, I'm the type of girl that would never ask for help. I think that's what you said, right? You'd never
Yes.
ask. Right. Well, Riley, it takes strength to to be humble and ask for help, especially this is a business that is completely different to the one you were in before. Before you were on your own. And here you've got a whole bunch of people that are rooting for you. And for you to ask for help in the way you did, I think is a very strong, it shows strength. It shows strength to say, look, I'm here, I'm part of this thing, I need some help. And I think that is very, very valuable in the characteristics of a person. Ask for help if you need it, like you did. And the response that you got, obviously, has fortified, strengthened your belief system. And from there you go forward. And as Dan said, it's a difference between feeling of failure and actually failing. Big differences as well. So I'm so glad that you brought this up, and everybody should know that we're all here to help each other. We're all born naked and afraid and wet. And from there we just
I'm not naked. Hey, listen, Riley, I really want to thank you for bringing this up. And as the conversation proceeded after you said that, it just shows all the strength in this group approach that Dan always refers to. But I will tell you, for every Riley on the call, there's 10 of us who haven't reached out for help. And a lot of us, as Dan says, we're achievers. So it's the old, pick yourself up by your bootstraps. I can do this, And I think there's strength in being able to do as Lawrence says, is humble yourself and go ask for that help. And what happens is you get strength of relationship with your colleagues, and that it's just like a tri-strand molecule. Boy, it's strong,
Yep. And to Lawrence's point, we're all born naked and wet. The beauty of being able to do these calls through Zoom is I can still be naked from the waist down.
You could, so don't stand up, okay?
all right.
So you guys, the difference between a Ruby and someone that failed at the business? The Ruby didn't quit.
Yep.
Yeah.
The difference between a Ruby and a Team Elite? Team Elite just kept going.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah.
You guys are all Team Elites, and we all go through a different journey. It took me 2 weeks just to kind of get my feet, or 2 years just to kind of feel like I was getting my feet wet in the business.
Yeah, we're all Team Elites in the making.
I'm posting something today. There's my avocado. This is a Team Elite. I don't know if you can see all the root system. That's a Team Elite, and it makes the plant grow. And I got the other one, which I threw out last night, which I'm posting, is just the avocado, and it's got one little root, and then it quit. So here's a Team Elite with all its, and that's how it happens. And the other avocado, which, as I say, had one little root, and it just stayed there, and it just died on the vine. So that's the one that quit. So I'm actually posting the pictures of that with the explanation today.
Stephen, what was the first one? What's the difference between a Ruby and a what?
Team Elite. The Team Elite just kept going.
No, the one before that. It was, you said
Ruby and someone that failed.
Oh, someone that failed. Okay.
Yeah, the person that failed just quit. I mean, that's one of the 3 things that Nathan says Nathan Ricks is set goals, avoid negative people, and never ever quit.
Yeah.
There's actually a book that is really, really good called Your First Year in Network Marketing. And it talks about all these emotional challenges that we go through. And sometimes we think it's just us and we're like, well, I'm failing. And when you start to kind of have expectations, and this book sets a lot of expectations, you feel like you're not alone and it's just part of the process, right? Because we've all been successful at something, and now we're trying something new that we think we're gonna, just grow. And it's kind of like there's a book called Peaks and Valleys, And if you want to go from one mountain, which is maybe where you are in your career from a previous life, and you want to go to the next mountain peak that's higher and maybe has a better view, you got to walk down into the valley first before you go back up. And as long as you just understand that that's part of the process, you know, you can kind of say, tell yourself, I'm going to be okay. This is part of the journey.
Awesome.
Thank you. All right. Got anything you want to add?
All right,
No?
everybody. Well, thanks everybody for your comments. Thanks for being here with us every week. We really appreciate it. And we'll see everybody next Friday.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Have a great
Thank you,
weekend.
everyone.
Have a great weekend.
Thanks,
March
guys. Great call.
Guys, take care.
19, don't forget, everybody, March 19, Boca Raton. Plug into that. March 19, Boca Raton. Okay,
Got it.
thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.